Hi, today is Sunday, April 25th, 2010, and these are my reactions to our From course thus far. So what I wanted to talk about specifically was humanistic ethics and, sort of how that relates to individuality and the art of living, as From explains it, and I also wanted to bring in another text, Herman Hesse's Introduction to Demian, which I think kind of relates to some of the ideas that From is talking about. So I'll probably do that last. I'm going to talk about From first. So in Man for Himself, From explains humanistic ethics. He sums it up pretty simply, and he says, to sum up, good in humanistic ethics is the affirmation of life, the unfolding of man's powers. Virtue is responsibility toward his own existence. Evil constitutes the crippling of man's powers. Vice is irresponsibility toward himself. So, it's pretty clear. Good in humanistic ethics is what is good for man, and evil is what cripples man. So what's implied in that statement is, and Fromm explains this too, is that, that ethics are kind of come from within, that man has this innate ability to tell good from evil. And it's not dictated by some sort of authority figure or some institution like a religion or something necessarily. It's, it's an innate thing. And it ties into, as well, he mentions the unfolding of man's powers. That's ultimately what separates good from evil, is man's ability to unfold his powers. So he says earlier, all organisms have an inherent tendency to actualize their specific potentialities. So there's sort of this driving force that pushes the individual to, achieve their own, as he says, to achieve their own potential, to recognize their own strengths and weaknesses and their own, personality and their own, quirks and whatever, and to really put that to use. And there's just this innate force that's sort of pushing you toward that state. And that again is what Fromm talks about, the art of living. That living isn't just a static thing where, yes, you have a pulse and you're breathing and everything, but that doesn't really constitute living. Living is an art, just like, painting or drawing or doing chemistry is an art. I think just in the same sense that moving a pencil isn't drawing, just breathing and just existing isn't living. Like, again, if you truly are trying to understand yourself as an individual and are trying to unleash your human powers, I like the phrase that he uses, then you're truly living. And until you get to that point, you're kind of just existing. And Fromm mentions too that, like, there's this perception that because you're alive, you must be an expert in living, and nobody needs to teach you how to live, but it's really an incredibly complex process to live a truly, like, full life, and a good life. A good life, where good is defined by humanistic ethics. So, I think because every human being has this sort of innate potential, and every human being recognizes good as the furthering of that potential, you sort of have this unity of the human race, and that's sort of where you get empathy and where you get compassion, I think, and it's very unifying, where there's not these divisions between different peoples in different parts of the world and different things, which I think is sort of fantastic. I think, when you view human beings as just human animals trying to fulfill their potential. So with that being said, so I think Herman Hesse, I just wanted to read his explanation, because I think he explains the same thing in a different way. So from the intro of Demian, I will now read. Each man's life represents a road toward himself, an attempt at such a road, the intimation of a path. No man has ever been entirely and completely himself, yet each one strives to become that. One in an awkward, the other in a more intelligent way, each as best he can. Each man carries the vestiges of his birth, the slime and eggshells of his primeval past with him to the end of his days. Some never become human, remaining frog, lizard, ant. Some are human above the waist, fish below. Each represents a gamble on the part of nature to create in the creation of the human. We all share the same origin, our mothers. All of us came in at the same door, but each of us, experiments of the depths, strive towards his own destiny. We can understand one another, but each of us is able to interpret himself and himself alone. So, to start with, very clearly, each man's life represents a road toward himself. It's the same thing that Fromm talks about in The Art of Living, that it's really a journey towards finding your own, I think he says in here, your own destiny. And that no man has ever been entirely and completely himself really demonstrates the difficulty of living. Again, a good and true life. And I think the notion he kind of talks about almost in an almost evolutionarily, that you start out as, some never become human, remaining frog, lizard, ant. Some are human above the waist, fish below. That it's kind of this evolution into, as you discover yourself, you become more a human being, and as you tap into this kind of universal desire to, to live to live fully, that's when you really become a person. So there you have it. Humanistic Ethics, Art of Living, and Herman Hesse.